Hey, it's Robert. Let me tell you something that'll shake you to your core. My wife mocked my family, stole my cabin, and years later her parents called me landlord. Can you even imagine the betrayal? They left me in the dirt, took everything I worked for, and now they want me to fix things. They think they've won, but I'm not backing down. Trust me, the truth is about to hit harder than you ever thought possible. What happens next? You won't believe it. Are they ready for the storm that's coming? I'm Robert, 57 years old, retired, and alone. I've seen it all. The heartaches, the sacrifices, the endless years of working hard to support a family that never seemed to truly appreciate me. After all those years of noise, arguments, and the chaos of the city, I just wanted peace. I bought this little cabin tucked away in the woods, hoping it would be my refuge, my place of solitude. The cabin's not much, just a small structure, a little worn at the edges, but it's mine. No more deadlines, no more calls from work, no more constant disruptions from family demanding more of me than I could ever give. This was supposed to be my chance to finally breathe. Before I bought the cabin, I had spent most of my life in the city, surrounded by the noise and the pressures of life. The city was suffocating, but I stuck around thinking I could manage it, keep my head above water, make sure everyone had what they needed. It didn't help. No matter how much I gave, it was never enough. Not for my daughter Deja, not for her husband Michael, and certainly not for anyone else in my family. I'd spent decades pouring everything into everyone else, but when it came time to stand up for myself, to demand a little respect, I was always the silent provider, the one who just kept giving. Over the years, I let my boundaries slip further and further, always telling myself that if I just did more, if I just sacrificed a little more, things would get better. But they never did. Now I was trying to reclaim what little I had left. Peace. Time for myself. And then came the phone call. Michael, my son-in-law, his voice crackling through the line. "Robert," he said, "we're moving in. We're bringing my parents with us." I froze. My mouth went dry. There it was. The thing I had been avoiding my whole life. Family once again trampling over my need for peace, my need for space. I didn't respond right away. The silence between us felt like a gap I couldn't cross. What was there to say? What could I say? They were coming. That was all there was to it. I felt a sting in my chest. For years, I'd put my own needs aside, hoping that one day things would be different. But this felt like a betrayal, a slap in the face. I had worked hard all my life to give my family the best I could. But this cabin was supposed to be mine, my sanctuary. Was that too much to ask? I hung up the phone without answering Michael's question about when they were coming. Silence was my answer, my defense. Let them think what they would. But deep down, I was trapped. I couldn't stay silent forever. There had to be a breaking point. Deja and Michael arrived the next day with his parents in tow. I had known they were coming, but nothing could have prepared me for the way they walked through that door, as though this little cabin had always been theirs to share. The way they looked around, made themselves at home, without so much as a nod to the fact that this was supposed to be my retreat, my quiet place. Deja, especially, seemed to act as if it were her right to take over my space. "Come on, Dad, you knew this was coming," she said, a smirk dancing across her face, like she was doing me some favor by letting me keep my little spot in the house. She didn't even ask. She didn't have to. In her eyes, I was just the old man who had nowhere else to go. So I should just roll with it. But something inside me snapped. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't sure if I could just let it go. It was all starting to feel like too much. I tried to keep it together at dinner, forcing a smile, pretending nothing was wrong. But underneath it all, I was seething. The way Michael and Deja talked over me, the way they assumed I was fine with all of this. Did they think I was invisible? As I cleared the table after dinner, I saw something on the counter, a photo, an old family photo from years ago. It was of Deja and me, back when she was a little girl, before all this madness, before she married Michael, before everything had fallen apart. I picked it up, running my fingers over the glass, feeling the weight of it. I could almost hear her laughter, the way she'd sit on my lap and tell me all her secrets. But now, all I could feel was the emptiness. It was like I was holding on to something that no longer existed. A family, a connection, a bond that had long since faded. I felt like I was standing outside, looking in, trying to find a way back to something I could no longer reach. As I sat there holding the photo, The truth hit me hard. I had spent my whole life sacrificing, giving, trying to make things work. But what had it all amounted to? I was still here, alone, with nothing but my regrets and my silence. I thought back to when I was a boy. My mother used to tell me that family was everything, that loyalty and sacrifice were the cornerstones of love. She told me that no matter what, you had to put family first, even if it meant giving up everything for them. But looking at this photo, I realized that I had given up too much. I had lost myself in the process. And nobody had even noticed. For the first time, I understood something I had never understood before. I wasn't just some provider. I wasn't just here to give until I had nothing left. I was a person. I mattered. I could feel the shift inside me, like something was waking up. This cycle, this constant need to sacrifice for a family that didn't appreciate me, it had to end. The next day, I decided I wasn't going to let them walk all over me anymore. I wasn't going to be the silent man in the corner, letting things happen to me. I found Deja and Michael in the living room, talking as if nothing had changed. As if they hadn't just barged into my life and taken over without a second thought. "Deja," I said, my voice calm but firm, "you and Michael can't stay here any longer. This is my place, my home." Her eyes widened in surprise. I could see the anger start to rise, but I stood my ground. "You need to leave," I said. "Now." They didn't leave right away, of course. There were words, arguments, more silence. But in the end, they packed up and left. As they drove away, I stood there, watching them go. But I wasn't thinking about them anymore. I wasn't thinking about the hurt or the anger or the way they had treated me. No, I was thinking about me. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't backing down. I woke up early the next morning, the silence of the cabin pressing in on me like a weight I couldn't shake off. The walls felt like they were closing in. There they were, all of them, Deja, Michael, and his parents, living in my space, treating it like it was their own. I tried to ignore it, but each day, each passing moment, it gnawed at me. Sitting there on the porch, sipping my coffee, I couldn't help but reflect on how I had ended up here. This cabin was supposed to be my escape, a chance for me to get away from the mess that had always followed me. But now, I couldn't even find a moment of peace. I thought back to my younger years, to the sacrifices I made for my family, how hard I worked to provide, to make sure they had what they needed. But did they ever really appreciate it? No. They never saw the toll it took on me. Deja and Michael had always found ways to belittle me. I was the one who had to swallow my pride, pretend everything was fine while they walked all over me. I thought about the countless times I had been overlooked, dismissed. The years I spent putting their needs first while mine were ignored. I had never asked for much, just a little respect, a little acknowledgement. But that was too much to ask, wasn't it? And now here I was in my own home, feeling more like a guest than the owner. Michael and his parents acting as if they had every right to be here, like I was some servant whose job it was to accommodate them. It was suffocating. As the days wore on, the tension between us grew. I tried to keep my cool, tried to keep the peace, but it was getting harder to ignore the way they treated me. Michael's parents were especially bad. They'd ask me for things without a second thought, and when I'd try to set boundaries, they'd brush me off like I was being unreasonable. "Come on, Robert, we're family," they'd say. "You can handle it." The way they said it, so matter-of-fact, like I had no right to say no, was driving me mad. Every time they walked into the room, I felt my blood pressure rise. I hated it, but I didn't want to rock the boat. I didn't want to start another fight, didn't want to deal with the fallout. So I kept quiet, but it was eating away at me. The frustration built up, bubbling under the surface, threatening to explode. I knew this couldn't go on forever. But what choice did I have? The breaking point came one evening at dinner. We were all sitting around the table, Deja talking about her day, Michael quietly nodding along, and his parents taking up the conversation as if I wasn't even there. I felt invisible, like I didn't even exist in my own home. And that was it. I couldn't take it anymore. The years of sacrificing, the years of silence. It was all coming to a head. I slammed my hand on the table, the noise shocking everyone into silence. My heart was pounding in my chest, my breath coming in quick, shallow bursts. Enough, I said, my voice low but firm. You all need to leave. Now. For a moment, there was only silence. Then Deja's face twisted in disbelief. What? She asked, her voice rising in anger. What do you mean, leave? You heard me, I said, standing up. This is my house. I've had enough of being ignored, of being treated like I don't matter. You can't stay here anymore. Deja opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She was speechless, stunned by my words. Michael stood up next, his jaw clenched, his fists tightening at his sides. You can't be serious, he muttered. But I was. I am, I said, my voice steady. I've been quiet for too long, trying to keep the peace. But I'm done. This is my home, and you don't get to dictate what happens here anymore. There was a long, tense silence. Michael glared at me, and Deja, for the first time in a long while, didn't know what to say. She just stared at me, her eyes filled with hurt and confusion. As they packed up to leave, I stood by the door, watching them gather their things. I didn't feel the satisfaction I thought I would. Instead, there was a dull ache in my chest. It wasn't easy standing up for myself, but it felt necessary. Was I too harsh? Was this the right thing to do? The doubt crept in, but I pushed it away. I had spent my whole life giving and giving, never asking for anything in return, but for once, I was doing something for myself. I went back inside and sat down, trying to process everything that had just happened. My mind was racing, my emotions all over the place. I felt relieved, yes, but there was also guilt. Had I gone too far? Could I have handled it differently? What if I had just let them stay? But then I remembered how I'd been treated for so many years. Always second place. Always the one who was expected to give, without ever getting anything in return. That's when I heard it. My phone buzzed from the table. I picked it up. It was a message from Deja. Can we talk? She asked. I'm sorry for everything. Can I come by? My heart sank. I didn't know what to do. On one hand, I wanted to open the door, to forgive her, to make things right. But on the other hand, I wasn't sure if I could go back to being that silent, patient man who let everything slide. I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over the keyboard. Should I respond? Should I let her back in? Or was this the moment I finally let go? Just as I started typing, there was a knock at the door. I opened it, and there she was. Deja, standing on the porch, her face a mixture of frustration and regret. I could feel the weight of the moment, the tension hanging thick in the air. As I opened the door, I knew there was no turning back. The hardest part was yet to come. The phone rang again. It was the same number, Deja. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the green button. Should I answer it? Should I let her back in after everything? I didn't know. I was still wrestling with the weight of my decision to stand up for myself. It felt like a new kind of battle, one I wasn't sure I was ready for, but there was a part of me that knew I had no choice but to face it. It was early the next morning, and I sat on the porch of my cabin. The sun had just begun to peek over the trees, casting a soft light on the ground. The cool morning air still clung to my skin, but it was warm enough to feel comforting. But there was nothing comforting about the tension inside me. The silence felt heavy now, even though the cabin had once been my sanctuary. I had told Deja and Michael to leave, and they did. But with them gone, the emptiness of the cabin felt louder than ever. I had never felt more alone, and that loneliness stirred up memories. I remembered all the years of giving, of working tirelessly to support my family, only to be ignored and pushed aside. It hurt, the kind of hurt that settles deep in your chest and doesn't go away. For a long time, I had accepted it. But now, I couldn't just pretend like it didn't matter anymore. Deja's message lingered on my phone. I'm sorry for everything, Dad, it read, but something about it didn't sit right with me. There was no real apology, just a vague attempt to fix things. Her words didn't sound like genuine remorse. They sounded like a half-hearted attempt to get back into my good graces, to smooth things over without actually addressing the pain she'd caused. It made me feel conflicted. For so long, I had let her treat me like I didn't matter. And now here she was, offering a few words, but I wasn't sure if I should take them at face value. Could I just let it go? Or was this just another instance where I would let her walk all over me? The bitterness in my chest grew as I thought about all the years of sacrifice. I had always put my family first. But where had it gotten me? I had sacrificed my own happiness, my peace, my well-being, for the sake of others. And for what? To be dismissed, to be taken for granted. No more, not anymore. But I still wanted to hear her out. I wanted to believe that we could fix things, that I could somehow get back the relationship I had with my daughter before everything fell apart. I sat at the kitchen table, the message still fresh in my mind, when I decided to send a reply. "Let's talk," I typed. A simple message, but my fingers hesitated before hitting send. I knew that a conversation wouldn't fix things, not immediately. It never worked that way. But I also knew that the longer I stayed silent, the more I would lose. And I couldn't afford to lose myself anymore. The sound of a knock at the door startled me out of my thoughts. I got up slowly, my heart pounding in my chest. When I opened the door, there she was, Deja. Her eyes were tired, her face showing signs of the frustration and regret she hadn't bothered to hide. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice softer than it had been the other day, but there was still that defensiveness in her tone. I could feel the weight of what she was saying, but there was something about her apology that didn't quite sit right with me. "I know you're upset, Dad, but you don't know what it's been like," she continued, her words starting to sound rehearsed, like she was trying to get the right thing out but wasn't sure how. "I've been dealing with a lot, with Michael's family, with everything, and I took it out on you. I shouldn't have." I nodded, trying to keep my composure. Part of me wanted to let it go, to wrap her in my arms and tell her everything would be fine. But the other part of me, the part that had been ignored for too long, was done with being the quiet, patient man who just took everything. "You've hurt me, Deja," I said, my voice steady but firm. "For years, I've been here, always trying to make things work, but you've never truly seen me. You never understood what I gave up." She looked down, her eyes filling with tears, but I couldn't let her pull me back in that easily. I needed to stand my ground. "Why is it always about what you need? Why is it always about what everyone else needs? You and Michael have treated me like a doormat, Deja," I continued. "I've given everything I have, but you never took a moment to see what I needed." She flinched, like I had slapped her. But she didn't argue this time. The silence hung heavy between us, and I could feel the walls we had built over the years beginning to crack. As we sat there, I began to understand. This wasn't just about me being hurt, it was about a cycle, a pattern in our family. My parents had sacrificed everything for me. They had given up their own happiness for my sake, and I had followed that same path with my own family. It was expected of me, and I had never questioned it. But now, for the first time in my life, I was questioning it all. Deja wasn't the only one who had been hurt. We had all been hurt, all of us stuck in this toxic loop. My mother had told me to be loyal, to sacrifice, but was that the right way to live? Was it possible that I had been living under a belief that wasn't healthy, a belief that family loyalty meant losing yourself? "I can't keep doing this, Deja," I said, looking her in the eye. "I can't keep sacrificing myself for you, for Michael, for anyone. I've spent my whole life giving and getting nothing in return. I've got to find a way to heal myself first before I can heal anything with you." She opened her mouth to speak, but I held up my hand. "I'm not going to keep doing this, Deja. I need to take care of myself. I've been losing who I am, and I can't let that happen anymore." The words I had been holding in for so long finally spilled out, and I felt lighter, as if something inside me had finally shifted. I wasn't the same man I had been before. I wasn't just the provider, the silent figure in the background anymore. Just as I finished speaking, my phone buzzed again. It was Michael. I took a deep breath before answering. "Hello?" "Robert," Michael said, his voice hesitant. I owe you an apology. I know I haven't been fair to you, and I'm sorry. I've been part of this dysfunction too, and I want to make things right." I felt a strange mixture of surprise and skepticism. He sounded sincere, but could I trust him? Could I trust anyone? I hung up, my mind racing. What was I supposed to do now? Was this a sign that things could change, or was I just setting myself up for more disappointment? As the call ended, I realized one thing. No matter what they say or do, the real battle was never with them. It was with myself. It's funny how things shift without any warning. I had spent my life being the man who never asked for much, always the quiet one, always giving, always the one to shoulder the weight. Yet here I was, standing on the edge of something I didn't quite understand. I had set boundaries, something I'd never done before, and now I was waiting for the consequences. Would my family see it as strength or weakness? I didn't know. I sat at the table in my cabin, staring at the text from Deja. "I'm sorry, Dad," it said. But what did it really mean? Was she truly sorry, or was she just trying to fix things on her terms? Was I supposed to open up again after everything? I wasn't sure, but I knew I couldn't go back to the way things were. That old man, the one who never asked for anything and accepted whatever came his way, that man was gone. I needed peace, but peace didn't come with compromises anymore. Not this time. Just as I was about to put my phone down, a knock echoed through the cabin. My heart sank. I hadn't expected anyone today. When I opened the door, I found Michael standing there. He looked different. Tired, maybe, but there was something else in his eyes. Regret, maybe. He cleared his throat before speaking. "Robert," he said quietly, almost hesitating. "Can we talk?" My first instinct was to shut the door. I didn't want to hear what he had to say. After everything, the betrayal, the silence, how could I trust him? But I didn't close the door. Something in me told me to let him speak. I nodded, wordlessly stepping aside to let him in. We sat across from each other at the table. Michael was fidgeting, avoiding my gaze. He looked like a man caught between two worlds, not sure which one to choose. "I've come to apologize," he began, his voice low. "I know things haven't been right between us. Hell, I know I've been part of the problem." He paused and looked at me. "But I'm trying to change that. I see now what I've done to you and to Deja, and I'm sorry. I'm really sorry for how I treated you. It wasn't right." I sat in silence, watching him. Part of me wanted to shout at him, demand answers, but I didn't. I stayed still, as I always did, as I always had. But this time, it wasn't out of fear. It was because I was waiting to see if this apology meant anything at all. "I don't know if I can believe you, Michael," I said finally, breaking the silence. "You've treated me like crap for years, and now you show up and say sorry. I don't know what to make of it." He swallowed hard. "I know it sounds bad and maybe it's too late. But I see it now, Robert. I was insecure, trying to prove something to my family, and I ended up hurting everyone around me, especially you." He wasn't wrong about that. I'd spent my entire life trying to keep the peace, trying to be the silent provider, but it was always one-sided. I'd been used and abused, and I'd taken it for far too long. "But why now?" I asked, the question hanging between us. "Why come here now?" He shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "I'm trying to make things right. I've been thinking about all the ways I've screwed up, and I realize I need to do something about it. I need to fix it, or at least try." I studied him, trying to decide whether to trust him. Could I? After everything that had happened, could I let him in again? After a long pause, Michael did something I didn't expect. He leaned forward, his eyes locking with mine. "Listen, I know you've been dealing with a lot on your own, especially with the cabin and all the property stuff. I've got some legal connections and I can help you out with that. It's not much, but it's something. Let me help you with what you've been struggling with." I couldn't believe my ears. Was he really offering help? After everything, this was his olive branch. It didn't feel like a genuine offer. It felt like a calculated move, like he was trying to buy my forgiveness. But then again, maybe it was a real attempt to make amends. I had to think about it. I couldn't just jump at it, no matter how badly I needed help. Was it worth it? Could I take him at his word, or was this just another way to manipulate me into doing what he wanted? The days passed, and we worked together on the property issues. It was awkward at first, like trying to patch a broken wall with a few pieces of tape. But as the days went on, Michael did seem to genuinely help. He gave me solid advice, and he actually worked with me, going over the legal papers I'd been avoiding for years. But even though he was being helpful, I couldn't let my guard down. Old wounds were still fresh. I had been burned too many times to be naive again. I kept everything in my hands, every decision, every choice. I wasn't going to let anyone take control of me again, not even Michael. And one evening, after a particularly long day of paperwork and legal talk, I finally asked him the question that had been gnawing at me. "Why now, Michael?" I asked, looking him square in the eyes. "Why are you doing this? After everything that's happened, why help me now?" For a moment, he was silent. Then he sighed, leaning back in his chair. "I don't have a good answer, Robert. Honestly, I don't. But I'll tell you this. I've been carrying around guilt for a long time. And it took losing everything to finally see what I'd been doing wrong. I've treated you like crap, and I can't take that back. But I can try to do better. I just want to make things right." It wasn't the answer I had expected, but it was real. Maybe it was too little, too late, but it was honest. And maybe, just maybe, I could believe him. I sat there for a long time after Michael left. His words weighed on me. I couldn't deny that he had helped in his own way, and that made it harder to turn him away. But I had to think about my own future. I had to decide whether I was going to keep living in the past or start making decisions for myself on my terms. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had a choice, a real choice. The next day, I called him. I had made my decision. "I'll take your offer," I told him, "but it's on my terms. You don't get to control this. I get to decide what happens next." The words I spoke were a declaration of my independence, of my refusal to let anyone walk all over me again. I wasn't a doormat anymore. As I hung up the phone, I felt a strange sense of peace. For the first time in years, I was taking control of my life. And then, just as I sat down to reflect on the shift I had made in my life, the phone buzzed again. It was Deja. The message read, "I want to try again. I'm sorry for everything. I know I've hurt you, but I want to make things right. Can we talk?" The words hung there, unanswered. Was it too late for her? Or was this my chance to finally break free? The days had been quiet since I made the choice to give Michael a chance. But peace, as it turns out, is never a permanent thing, especially when you're dealing with the weight of the past. My decision to move forward wasn't a guarantee that things would improve. If anything, it made me more vulnerable, more exposed. There was something about taking control that made me feel lighter, but it also left me open to the cracks in my relationships. I was battling more than just old grudges now. I was fighting the very foundation of what I thought family was supposed to be. I'd seen the change in myself. In the past, I would have kept quiet, let things go, let the wounds fester. But now, I wasn't so sure. And then, she showed up. Lena. I'd barely set the kettle on the stove when I heard the knock. Not a polite tap-tap, but a firm, almost defiant one. The kind of knock that says, "I'm not here for pleasantries." When I opened the door, there she stood, Deja's mother, looking just as sharp as I remembered, but with a look in her eyes that was sharper still. "Robert," she said, voice tight with controlled fury. "We need to talk." I didn't invite her in. I didn't have to. She stepped inside anyway, her presence like a shadow blocking the warmth of the cabin behind her. "I'm not here to argue," she said, her words like daggers wrapped in velvet. "I'm here because you're making a huge mistake." I could feel my pulse quicken. "What mistake, Lena?" Her eyes narrowed. "You think you can just walk away from your family like it's nothing? After all the years you've spent pretending that everything was fine, you think you can just cut ties now?" I didn't speak at first. I just stared at her, taking in the weight of her words. It was like she was accusing me of something I had no intention of doing. I didn't cut ties. I was just trying to preserve myself. I did what I had to do, I finally said, trying to keep my voice even. I'm done being the silent provider. It's time for me to find peace. Lena stepped closer, a challenge in her stance. You think Deja's going to understand that? You think she's going to respect you when you leave her out there to fend for herself? You didn't give her a chance to explain herself, Robert. You didn't even try. I shook my head. I'm tired of being the one who always has to understand. Tired of forgiving. Tired of making excuses for everyone else. What about me, Lena? When do I get to be heard? She sighed, crossing her arms. Maybe you don't understand this, but she's hurt too. You think she's been all right? You think she's had an easy life trying to balance everything? Maybe the reason she's distant is because you've never really seen her. And now, you're turning your back on her. I could feel it. The guilt was creeping in, like it always did. And I was a father, wasn't I? Wasn't I supposed to understand my daughter? Wasn't I supposed to be there for her even when she couldn't be there for me? But then Lena's words hit me harder. She wasn't right. She couldn't be right. Not about everything. I wasn't abandoning anyone. I was simply choosing to protect myself for the first time in my life. Lena's voice softened. She's not the only one who's been hurt, Robert. You've spent your whole life protecting everyone else. But when's the last time you protected yourself? You think cutting her out is going to solve your problems? It's not. She reached into her purse and pulled out a photograph. A family picture from a few years ago. Deja, Michael, and me, all smiling for the camera. It felt like another life. A life where everything seemed easy, before the lies, before the resentment. You need to understand something, Robert, she said, her voice hardening again. You've been so focused on protecting everyone else, you've never taken the time to protect yourself. You think you're standing strong by cutting ties, but all you're doing is walking away from your family. You're walking away from your daughter. I stood there, staring at the photograph in her hand. Her words echoed in my mind, bouncing around the walls of my cabin. But it was hard to breathe, hard to hear her over the pounding in my chest. Later that night, after Lena left, I sat by the fire, alone in the silence of the cabin. Her words were still in my head, gnawing at me, digging in deeper with every passing second. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had been too quick to judge Deja, too quick to shut her out. I thought back to the way I was raised, the values my mother had instilled in me, strength, dignity, standing up for what's right. But where did that leave me now? Was I doing what was right, or was I just being stubborn? I stood up, walked to the desk, and pulled out a journal I had kept when I was younger. I hadn't looked at it in years. I opened it to the first page, and there it was, my own handwriting, clear as day. I'm tired of being the one everyone leans on. I'm tired of feeling like I'm invisible. Nobody notices me until they need something. It was all right there, all the pain I had buried for so long. I'd never acknowledged it, never really let myself feel it. But now, as I sat there alone, I couldn't ignore it anymore. The next morning, I took a long walk through the woods, the cold air biting at my face, sharp and cleansing. I had a decision to make. And as much as I wanted to keep moving forward, to keep pushing people away, I knew something had to change. It wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about fixing things with Deja or Michael or Lena. It was about healing. And healing, I realized, wasn't about erasing the past. It was about accepting it. I sat down on a fallen log, my mind clear for the first time in days. I had to stop running from my feelings. I had to stand up for myself and face what I'd been avoiding. The phone rang that afternoon, shattering the quiet. It was Michael. I need to talk, he said, his voice low and serious. I know things have been tense. I know I've screwed up. But I want to try. I need to make things right. Please. I closed my eyes, the weight of the decision pressing down on me. But just as I was about to respond, another call came through. This time it was a legal notice. My heart dropped as I read the words. The family was fighting for the cabin. They were citing an old agreement that I didn't even know existed. Suddenly, everything I had fought for felt like it was slipping through my fingers. As I stood there, staring at the paper in my hand, I realized this was no longer just about me. It was about proving that I could finally take control of my own life. Whatever it took. The quiet of the cabin felt heavier these days, like a constant weight pressing down on my chest. The stillness was both a comfort and a curse. I knew the storm was coming. My family was still out there, unresolved and angry, and the truth was knocking at my door. The moment to confront them was drawing near, and I was steeling myself for it. But deep down, I couldn't help but wonder if I was making the right choice. It had been years since I felt like I had control over anything, but now I felt like I had to fight for it, every bit of it. And that fight wasn't just with them, it was with myself too. My past, my decisions, the way I had let others define me. Everything had been leading me here, to this cabin, to this point in my life where I could no longer pretend that things were okay. I looked out the window, the quiet woods beyond, reflecting the calm that had settled over me. But it wasn't peace. It was a pause before the storm. I thought about my childhood, how I had learned that my worth came from others' approval. My mother had always taught me that family was everything, that loyalty came first, no matter what. But what did that loyalty cost me? Then, the weight of the envelope on the table caught my attention. I hadn't expected this. I opened the letter slowly, as though I already knew the words inside would change everything. The handwriting was familiar, but the sender? Isaiah, my former business partner. I hadn't heard from him in years. We'd parted ways after a messy fallout over some business decisions, and after that, he just vanished. His words were direct, almost too cryptic. Robert, if you're reading this, then you've already made some decisions, but there's something you don't know. Something about the cabin and your family. I think it's time you knew the truth. I sat down. The room felt smaller. I read on. Isaiah claimed there were old financial dealings tied to the cabin that I had never known about. Debts, agreements made by my family, ones I'd never been made aware of. He even went so far as to say that the cabin had never fully belonged to me, not entirely. I could feel the blood drain from my face. Your family owes a debt, and that debt is tied to your inheritance. I read the words over and over, trying to process them. The cabin, my sanctuary, my peace. Had it always been at the mercy of others? Had I been blind all these years? What was I supposed to believe? Before I could make sense of the letter, another message flashed across my phone. It was a video from Deja. She looked tired, her eyes red as though she had been crying. "Dad," she said, her voice trembling, "I know you're angry. I know you think I've hurt you, but please don't do this. Please don't air our dirty laundry to the world. It'll ruin everything." It'll ruin us. I paused the video, my fingers trembling slightly. I didn't know if I could believe her anymore. What was she asking for? Forgiveness? Or was this just another manipulation? But I couldn't stop myself. I had to face her, to confront everything. I couldn't let her control me anymore. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. My heart skipped a beat. When I opened it, there she stood, Deja, standing on my doorstep. Her eyes were downcast, but I could see the tension in her posture. She didn't wait for an invitation. She stepped inside, her voice soft. "Dad, we need to talk. Please." I didn't say anything. I didn't want to. I had nothing left to say, but she didn't wait for me to speak. "I've been thinking about everything," she began, "and I know I've messed up. I know I've been distant, and I'm sorry. But you can't just shut me out, Dad. We're family. You can't just throw everything away because you're hurt." I felt my chest tighten, and I could feel the heat rising in my face. All the old anger I had kept buried surfaced, and it was all I could do to keep from shouting. "Family?" I said, my voice sharp. "You think I've been shutting you out? You think I've been playing the victim? You don't get it, Deja. I've been there for you, for Michael, for everyone, and all I've ever gotten in return is nothing. Not even a thank you. You think I'm just supposed to forgive, to forget, and pretend like none of this ever happened?" Her face crumpled, but she held her ground. "I'm not asking you to forgive everything, Dad. I'm just asking for a chance to fix things. But you can't keep holding on to this anger. It's eating you up." I shook my head. "I've been the one holding everything together, keeping everything from falling apart, and what do I get in return? Nothing but more pain. You've been using me, Deja." "And so has Michael." Her eyes widened at my words. "What are you talking about?" "Michael's been hiding things from me, Financial deals, debts, the cabin, Deja. It's all a mess, and you've been keeping me in the dark about it. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the truth settle on my shoulders. It's not just you. It's all of you. She took a step back, clearly shaken by what I had said. No, Dad, you don't understand. Michael was just trying to protect you. He didn't want you to worry. I felt my chest tighten, a wave of disbelief crashing over me. Protect me? By lying to me? By keeping me in the dark about everything? The silence between us was heavy, thick with the weight of years of resentment and unresolved issues. Deja looked at me, her face a mixture of guilt and confusion. I never meant for it to be this way, Dad. I never meant to hurt you. I didn't say anything. What was there to say? I had given everything to this family, and now I was left standing here with nothing but a broken legacy. I turned away from her, trying to find some space to breathe. The room felt suffocating, and I knew that this moment, this confrontation, was the tipping point. I didn't know what to do anymore. But the truth had been laid bare before me. It wasn't just about the cabin. It wasn't even about Deja or Michael anymore. It was about me. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts again. I opened it, expecting nothing good. Lena stood there holding a legal document in her hands. This is it, Robert. This is the final demand. Either you negotiate with us or you lose everything. The family is claiming ownership of the cabin. The debts are real, and they'll come for everything you have if you don't act. I froze, staring at the paper. The words blurred before my eyes. This was the final straw. I stood there, staring at the document in my hands, the realization settling in. And it wasn't just about the cabin anymore. It was about proving I could finally take control of my own life. Whatever it took. I felt the weight of everything pressing down on me. The battles, the lies, the choices I had to make, and the uncertainty of the future. It was all becoming too much to bear. My body, which had carried me through decades of stress, seemed to finally be catching up. It happened suddenly. One moment I was walking across the cabin, feeling the strain in my chest. My vision blurred for a second, and then a sharp pain hit. I collapsed onto the couch, gasping for air. Panic set in for a moment, but I refused to let it win. I'd been through worse, I thought. I could handle this too. But this was a wake-up call. My body had had enough. I tried to catch my breath, but my heart pounded hard in my chest, my body trembling. I realized something then. This battle for my future, my life, it couldn't be delayed any longer. I sat up slowly, rubbing my chest. The pain subsided, but the reality didn't. I had spent my life putting everyone else first. But I couldn't do that anymore. Not if it meant sacrificing my health and my peace. I looked at the walls around me, the place I had chosen for peace. Yet this place was beginning to feel like a prison. The family I had loved and tried to protect, all their manipulations, their lies, had led me here. I couldn't turn back anymore, not after everything. I thought about my mother's words again, how she always told me to stand tall. Don't let anyone push you down, she'd say. Your dignity is everything. Maybe it was time to listen to her. For once, it wasn't just about forgiveness. It was about me, my future. I was still trying to make sense of it all when the knock came. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, Deja stood there, her face a mixture of guilt and frustration. Dad, we need to talk, she said, her voice soft but firm. Please. I stepped aside, my mind already racing. She was here, but why now, after everything? I know you're angry, she began, stepping into the living room. I know I've done wrong, but you can't just shut me out. You've always been there for me, and I'm asking you not to walk away. We're family, Dad. Family. The word felt so hollow coming from her. Hadn't I given everything for this family? Wasn't it always my sacrifice, my suffering to keep it all together? I couldn't stay silent anymore. Family. You think that's what this is about? My voice cracked, but I didn't care. All my life, I've been the one to pick up the pieces. I've given everything I have, and what have I gotten in return? Your silence, your manipulation, your selfishness. I'm done being invisible in my own home. Deja looked at me, her eyes filling with tears. Dad, I never meant to hurt you. You never meant to hurt me? I almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. You've hurt me more than you'll ever understand. You think it's just me? What about Michael? What about the things he's been hiding from me? You know about the debts, the lies? She flinched, clearly taken aback. What are you talking about? Michael's been meeting with a lawyer, behind my back making moves to take the cabin, to make sure I don't have a say in any of it. You knew, Deja. You and Michael both. She froze. The color drained from her face. For a moment, the tension between us was unbearable. She opened her mouth to speak, but stopped herself. I'm sorry, Dad, she whispered. I didn't want you to find out this way. You didn't want me to find out at all, I shot back. You've been playing me, Deja. All this time you've been playing me. The room was thick with silence. I couldn't believe what was happening. The family I thought I knew, the people I had sacrificed everything for, had been planning behind my back. Then, just as the silence grew unbearable, there was another knock. This time it was Lena, Deja's mother, standing on the doorstep with a legal document in her hand. She didn't wait for an invitation. She barged in, her heels clicking on the floor. Robert, she said, her tone cold. It's over. You've made your choice, but there's no turning back now. I stared at the paper in her hands, a knot forming in my stomach. She handed it to me without another word. The family is claiming ownership of the cabin, Lena said. This is a final demand. If you don't agree to negotiate, you'll lose it all. My heart pounded. I looked at the document, then at Deja. The betrayal, the manipulation. It had all come to this. I could feel the walls closing in. Lena's words, the weight of the legal threat, the betrayal from my own flesh and blood. It was too much. But something in me snapped. I stood up straight, forcing myself to take control. For too long, I had let this family walk all over me. I was done. Done hiding, done sacrificing. If they wanted a fight, they were going to get one. I turned to Deja, my voice firm. You've made your move, but now it's my turn. She stepped back, clearly unsure of what I was going to do next. I didn't look at Lena. This is my fight now. No more compromises, no more running. I'm standing tall, whether you like it or not. The tension in the room was palpable. As I stared at the paper in my hand, I knew this wasn't just about property. It was about my soul. I had nothing left to lose, but I wasn't going to let them take everything from me. I wasn't going to let them rewrite my life, my legacy. With one last look at Deja, I walked out the door, ready to face whatever came next. But as I locked the door behind me, Lena's words echoed in my mind. Once you step into the courtroom, there's no going back. Everything will change. I didn't know how far I'd have to go or what the consequences would be, but I was done being afraid. The morning light filtered through the window, casting long shadows across the cabin. I sat at the kitchen table, my hands shaking just a little as I reviewed the legal documents one last time. The weight of what was about to happen hung heavily in the air, but there was no turning back now. My mind was clear, my resolve stronger than ever. This was my life, my dignity, my legacy. I had spent years sacrificing for others, my family, my loved ones, always putting their needs before my own. But now, as I read the fine print in front of me, I knew that this fight wasn't just about the cabin or the money or the things I could lose. It was about reclaiming what had been taken from me all these years, my freedom, my peace of mind, and my right to live life on my own terms. No more compromise, no more silence. I had given everything to my family, and now I was going to take back what was rightfully mine. I set the papers down and took a deep breath. It was time. Just as I stood up to leave for my lawyer's office, the knock on the door caught me off guard. I opened it slowly, and there she was, Deja, my daughter, standing there with a look in her eyes that I couldn't quite read. Dad, she said quietly, her voice shaky, can we talk? I didn't invite her in. I just stood in the doorway, waiting for her to speak. I know I've messed up. I know I've hurt you, but please don't do this. Please don't make it worse than it already is, she pleaded, her words tumbling out in a rush. I wasn't moved by her apology. I had heard it all before. Her words were hollow, her remorse too convenient. She knew the battle ahead, and this wasn't her first attempt to manipulate me. "You think this is about you?" I asked, my voice low but steady. "You think this is about fixing things with a few words?" She flinched, and I saw the tears welling in her eyes, but I didn't soften. Not this time. "Dad, I'm scared. I didn't know what else to do. Michael's been doing things behind your back. I didn't want to hurt you, but now I see the damage." It was as if the ground under me cracked. I stared at her, processing what she'd just said. Michael? My son-in-law? The same one I had trusted? The one who had been conspiring behind my back? "Michael's been meeting with a lawyer," Deja continued, her voice trembling. "He's been working with them to transfer assets from your name, behind your back, without you knowing." I felt a cold rush of anger flood through me. I had known something wasn't right, but hearing it from her, my own flesh and blood, cut deeper than I could have imagined. "Is that so?" I asked, my voice growing stronger. "Is this what you've all been up to? Using me? Lying to me? For years?" "I'm sorry, Dad," Deja whispered. "I didn't know how to stop it." I stepped back and closed the door without another word. The betrayal hit me like a punch to the gut. Michael, Lena, Deja. They had all been playing me, scheming against me, and I had given them everything. The day of the court hearing arrived, and I walked into that room with my head held high, my heart pounding, but my mind focused. I wasn't the man I used to be. This was no longer about just surviving. This was about taking back what was mine. The courtroom was packed. I could feel the weight of the room pressing on me. Deja and Michael sat together, their eyes avoiding mine. I could see the desperation on their faces, the lies they had told, now coming to light. The lawyers made their opening statements. The family's lawyer tried to paint me as a frail, aging man who was no longer in control of his faculties. He used my age, my health issues, to question my credibility, but I wasn't having it. I stood, calm but unwavering, and I addressed the court. "You've been trying to strip me of everything for years, but this time, I'm not backing down. You've taken enough from me." The room was silent as my words echoed. I could feel the eyes of everyone in the room on me. Just as I thought they might win the upper hand with their lies, Isaiah walked into the room. He hadn't been expected as a witness, but there he was, standing tall, confident, with evidence in hand. "Your Honor," Isaiah said, his voice steady, "the family has been plotting against Robert for years. I have proof." He handed over documents, emails, and other pieces of evidence that proved the family's deceit. The courtroom buzzed with disbelief. I could see the judge's eyes widen in shock. As Isaiah continued to present his case, the entire courtroom shifted. The truth was coming out. The family had been planning this all along, and now they were going to pay for it. The turning point came when the final piece of evidence was presented, a hidden email exchange between Lena and Michael, detailing their scheme to seize my cabin, to manipulate me into giving it all away. The evidence was undeniable. It was a betrayal like no other. The family's lawyer tried to recover, but the damage was done. Their entire case was unraveling. And then, just as I thought we had it, the judge dropped another bombshell. "It has come to our attention," the judge said, "that the lawyer representing the family has a history of unethical behavior. This could undermine the entire case." The weight of the moment hit me. I could feel the tension in the air, the truth settling like a storm cloud. As the family tried to regroup, Michael made one final desperate plea. "Robert, let's just settle this. I can offer you a lump sum, enough to make everything go away." I stared at him, unblinking. "Money can't buy back what you took from me," I replied, my voice steady and sure. "You don't get to fix this with a check." Michael's desperation became clear. "I'll expose your past mistakes, Robert. All of them. You don't want to go down that road." I took a step forward, my voice firm and calm. "Go ahead. The world will see who you really are. I'm not afraid of your threats anymore." The judge left to deliberate. The room was heavy with anticipation. I sat, waiting for the final decision, my heart racing. When the judge returned, it was official. I won. My cabin was mine. My assets were restored. My dignity was intact. The judge turned to me and said, "It's not just about the cabin. It's about doing what's right. Robert, you've proven your worth in this court and in your life." Deja stood, her eyes filled with tears. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I regret everything. I was wrong." But I was unmoved. The journey I'd been on wasn't about her. It wasn't about any of them. It was about me, and I was no longer willing to live in the shadow of their lies. As I stepped outside, the weight of the victory settled in. But it wasn't just about winning. It was about reclaiming my life, my peace. The cabin, once a symbol of betrayal, now stood as a testament to my strength. I smiled, but it was bittersweet. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was ready. Just as I walked away, my phone rang. Isaiah had found another hidden clause in the will, one that could change everything. I stopped, took a deep breath, and prepared myself. The battle wasn't over, but I was ready for whatever came next. The air felt lighter as I stood at the threshold of my cabin. It was hard to believe that the fight, the endless struggle, had come to an end. The victory was mine, but it didn't feel like the triumphant moment I'd imagined. It was a quiet, almost empty kind of peace. The scars were still there, just beneath the surface. I took a deep breath, letting the familiar scent of the woods surround me. The cabin that had once felt like a prison now stood as a symbol of my strength, a place I could finally call my own. But as much as I had won the battle, I couldn't ignore the emotional toll it had taken. The years of betrayal, the lies, the hurt, those things didn't disappear with a court ruling. They were etched into my soul, and they'd stay with me. Sitting by the fireplace later, I reflected on the toll this entire journey had taken. The months of sleepless nights, the moments of doubt, the pain of realizing just how deep the betrayal had gone. It all came rushing back. I wondered if reconciliation with my family was even possible anymore. Could I truly move on after everything that had happened? Just as I was about to let those thoughts consume me, my phone rang. It was Isaiah. His name flashed on the screen, and I hesitated for a moment before picking up. "Robert," Isaiah said, his voice steady, "I've got something that might bring more closure to this whole mess." I was taken aback. Closure. What else could there be? I had already been through so much, had already won, but I knew Isaiah's words carried weight. He'd been there when no one else had. "What is it?" I asked, trying to sound calm. Isaiah paused for a moment before speaking. "I've uncovered some more details, some things that might help you truly move beyond the past, and maybe even find peace with it." I wasn't sure what he meant, but I couldn't ignore the possibility. It felt like another twist in a never-ending saga, but I had to know. A few days later, Deja came to visit. It was unexpected, and I wasn't sure what to expect when I opened the door. There she was, standing in front of me, with an apology in her eyes. She looked vulnerable, her usual confident demeanor replaced by something softer, genuine remorse. "Dad," she started, her voice trembling, "I've been trying to reach you. I need to apologize. I know what I did was wrong. I hurt you, and I hurt this whole family." I stood there watching her, unsure of how to respond. I had been through so much, and I wasn't sure if I could just let the past go. But there was something in her eyes, a sincerity I hadn't seen before. "I was scared, Dad," she continued. "I was afraid of losing everything, and in trying to hold on, I hurt you. I'm sorry." I let her words sink in. After all that had happened, I realized I was tired of carrying this anger around. It had eaten away at me for far too long. I finally spoke, my voice quiet but firm. "You've done a lot of damage, Deja, and I've carried that weight, but I'm learning that holding on to anger won't fix anything." Her eyes filled with tears. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small worn item. It was a pendant, a gift I had given her years ago. She had taken it from me in a moment of anger, but now she returned it with an apology. "This is for you," she said, holding it out. "I know it won't fix anything, but it's a start. I want to make it right." I took the pendant, feeling the weight of the years between us. I didn't know if forgiveness was possible, but in that moment, I knew that it had to start somewhere. The healing process was slow. It wasn't just Deja who I had to face, it was the whole family. I had to confront the ones who had manipulated me, lied to me, used me for their gain, and that included Lena. After a few weeks of silence, Lena showed up at my door. She looked worn out, tired, but also a little softer than I remembered. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, and we sat in the quiet of my cabin. "I've been thinking a lot," she began, her voice low. "I made mistakes, Robert. I let myself be manipulated, and I hurt you. But I've seen the damage I caused, and I regret it." I felt a rush of emotions, anger, sorrow, but also something I hadn't expected, understanding. She was trying. I could see it in her eyes. She was ashamed of her role in the betrayal, and for the first time she admitted it. "I never wanted this for you," Lena continued, "but I let my fears get in the way, and I've realized that I've lost a lot in the process." I didn't know if I could forgive her, not yet, but I understood her. I wasn't sure where to go from here, but I knew that this was a step, one I hadn't expected to take. Before I could say anything, the door swung open again. It was Michael. "Robert," he said, his tone insincere but forceful. "You need to forgive me too." I stared at him, incredulous. After everything, he was still acting like he deserved forgiveness. My blood boiled. I didn't want to hear his lies anymore. "You think I'm going to forgive you just like that?" I snapped. "You think you can waltz back in and make everything okay? No, Michael. Forgiveness isn't something you get just because you demand it." His face twisted, and I saw the anger flash behind his eyes. But I was no longer afraid of him. I stood my ground. "I can forgive, but I won't forget," I said firmly. "Your actions have consequences, and you'll have to live with that for the rest of your life." Michael's shoulders tensed, and he tried to retaliate, bringing up my past mistakes, trying to use them against me. But it didn't work. I saw through him now, and I wasn't going to let him manipulate me any longer. The final act of letting go wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I started rebuilding piece by piece, finding my own peace. I reconnected with my community, giving a public speech about resilience, about standing tall after being knocked down. The crowd listened, and I spoke from the heart. "We all make mistakes," I said, "but we have to learn from them. I've learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means moving forward, knowing we have the power to shape our own futures." It felt good to finally speak those words aloud. As I left the gathering, a letter arrived from my estranged family. They acknowledged their wrongs, asked for a chance to rebuild, but the letter also came with a warning. Some things were never meant to be fixed. I stepped out into the quiet night, my mind still turning over everything that had happened. The road ahead was unclear, but for the first time, I felt ready to face whatever came next. As I walked toward the cabin, I saw a small package on the porch. A note was attached inviting me to a family gathering, the first step toward rebuilding the relationships that had been torn apart. But the warning in the letter echoed in my mind. Some things were never meant to be fixed. I paused, staring at the note in my hand. Could they really change, or was this just another test of my strength? I took a deep breath and smiled. I was ready for whatever came next.